I had a conversation with a guy 2 days ago. No, yesterday in the sauna, and it was about 3 or 4 minute interaction, and I thought it'd be interesting, and I thought some of you guys would get some value from it because I think a lot of people have this way of thinking, So I'm sitting there, right, and he comes in, and I think I had my headphones in at the time. Anyways, doesn't matter. He's like, "Yeah, wow, this is like a really nice place. They got like a, I think he called it like a wet sauna, but I'm like, yeah, there's a steam room over there, and there's the hot tub. So, yeah, it's nice. This is really nice." I'm like, yeah, it's got a lot of amenities. I'm like, your first time here? He's just like, no, like I was here yesterday. The wife comes here, and he's kind of giving me his story, right? And then I just started having a conversation with him, asked him some questions about where he's going to the gym already and what he does for work. And, he's talking about him and then he started to talk about his life and kind of, and this guy wasn't like fat by no means, but he definitely had a bit of a, gut on him and whatever and some bit of man boobs, but whatever, and then he starts getting into talking about that, right? Because, well, he asked me first. He was just like, well, you've been coming here for a while. Just like, yeah, I've been at this gym for about 2.5, 3 years, but I've been training since I was 18 years old, man. So it's been like 14, 15 years. You know what I mean? And he's like, okay, yeah, I was about to say only 3 years, and it's just, and then he's talking about him and what he does for work, and he's on the job sites and how the weight used to come off by every summer because he said he works on these job sites and he's like moving around and he's shoveling all this shit and he's doing all this stuff, right? And you do burn a lot of calories doing manual labor, but it's still the inputs of food to the outputs of exercise. Like it doesn't work like that. Like, how many times do we say like, oh yeah, I'm having a cookie, I'm just going to do some extra cardio tomorrow? Like, it might seem like it works like that, but it really doesn't in the long run because your body has different holding patterns. Anyways, doesn't matter. But what I thought was really interesting was when he brought up, he grabs his kind of gut, right? And he's like shaking and he's just like, yeah, I don't know, just after 40, everything just seems to slow down. And I was just like, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, and then that's when he kind of had mentioned like, well, the jobs, like before I used to always be on those job sites, and by the summer I'd always be up and down the same 20 pounds from winter to summer. But by the time summer came around, I was in a good spot. And now that I'm 40, everything's just incredibly like slow, and everything's so much slower. And I'm just like, yeah, man. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to, how much you eat on a day-to-day basis, and then how much of those calories do you expend doing things, right? And at some point, there's been a lot more intake than output, right? And you could kind of tell this kind of demeanor almost changed a little bit. I wouldn't say he was getting frustrated. Maybe he was just kind of annoyed, right? Because I think what some people do when they talk, like I'm not gonna sit here and say like I'm some fucking crazy in shape guy. Like, I'm in shape, like I'm lean. But I think when individuals see someone who's lean, they just think like automatically they just have like, they're just like gifted with a metabolism, or they're taking a shit ton of drugs, or it just comes easy to them, right? And it's just like, maybe he didn't realize that, hey, again, I said I've been doing this since I'm 18 years old. I'm 33 now. And the most time I missed was during COVID. You know what I mean? Like, before COVID, I was fucking in the best shape of my life. I was doing bodybuilding competitions. Then COVID hit. And I fucking, if you're watching this video, you probably know what happened to me during COVID. Got brutally addicted to video games and put on like fucking 50 pounds pretty much of fat loss on my muscle. But that was probably the only time in 13 years when I went off the gym for, more than a week, like fucking 5 days maybe. Like I've always been in the gym at least 4, 5, 6 days a week. And then COVID hit, anyways. But yeah, I think, again, they think we like, people who are in shape and take care of themselves have this automatic gift, and it's just like, no, that's not really how it works, you know. And a lot of people just aren't honest with themselves. Like, again, you probably know well enough that if you really sit back and try and have a bird's eye view of just like, you know, because then he was telling me too, and he had admitted it in the sauna of why the extra weight is there. You know, he mentions like, okay, and then the kid has like, I think he said like hockey or something, and he has like dirt biking or something else, right? And so you add in all these activities, which takes time away from you being home in the evening, if maybe you wanted to cook some meals and whatever then, right? And then he's kind of talking about how, yeah, we really like to eat at like 6, but then we're eating at like 5, and then I come home and I'm fucking starving, and it's just like, it's all the same thing, right? Like, it's just like, whatever your schedule looks like, you know, you just have to come up with a plan and a system that you can plug in, and that works for you, right? And then this is what I was kind of just mentioning. I was just like, yeah, man, at the end of the day, like, you know, I can't remember how I said it to him, but I said to him, I was just like, yeah, man, like, I get what you're saying, but the metabolism doesn't really slow down as much as people think it does. Like, it slows down as you age, yes, but I don't think people understand that it's not like, it doesn't come to a screeching halt, you know. And I think a lot of people use that crutch, and a lot of people ride that out, and they just end up getting fatter and fatter and fatter and unhealthier, and then they throw their hands up and they're like, I can't control it. Anyways, I digress. I'm trying not to digress too much in this. I do that a lot. But yeah, man. And then, so I'm kind of like dipping in and out of what was said during the conversation. But all in all, once I kind of mentioned to him that, like, yeah, man, it really all depends on what your priority is. It really all depends on how much you're able to commit to running a system that works for you in your life. Even with your kid and all the activities, and your wife having to do her job overnight and stuff like that, I was like, really, it's up to you to be able to go, okay, I'm going to make sure all my workouts are done this week, and I do them in the morning before I go to work, before I do anything. I'm going to make sure that I make the same meals that, number one, are easy to make. Number two, they taste somewhat good. And number three, yeah, easy to make and take barely any time to make. And that's what's going to help you stay on track, man. Like, it's funny, man. Like, people think there's this magical fucking formula that someone from some other planet or whatever is going to come down here and teach us. It's like, the wheel has been invented. The laws of thermodynamics say that, you know, if we want to lose fat, weight, but ideally we want to lose fat, we want to keep our muscle, we need to be burning more calories than we consume. So let's just say I consume 2,000, I want to burn 2,500. That puts me in a 500 calorie deficit per day. That's 3,500 calories a week. Ideally, due to the math, I should lose 1 pound a week, right? And anyway, so again, went off on another tangent, but you could tell, like, when I told him kind of just like the basic math behind it and the basic like inputs and outputs, you could just tell like he was just already done. He was in the sauna for like 5 minutes, and he was just like, okay, yeah, man, nice to meet you. Have a good day, you know? And then another guy I knew came in, and we were kind of talking about it because he was there for the kind of the tail end of the conversation. But yeah, man, I find it, and I don't really blame people, because people don't really know any better, right? Like, they don't, unless you've really been looking into this. Maybe you're on social media and you're scrolling and shit, right? And then you have a better idea of how it works, how thermodynamics work, and how calorie deficits and how calorie surpluses work, and what's your maintenance calories. And then you get into macronutrients. Like, okay, well, if this is my goal, you know, I should be eating this much protein. I should be eating this much fat. I should be eating these many carbohydrates, right? Maybe you're an endurance athlete. Maybe you're fucking running all the time and you expend a lot of carbohydrates, so you eat more carbs. Like, could be anything, right? And it's just like, you can't expect to. It's almost like, maybe I'm taking this wrong, but it's almost like they think, like, it's almost like some people think that you can just look lean and in shape by just like not giving a fuck and not even understanding like the basics of how you get there, right? And I think it's just kind of an ignorant way of thinking. It's just like to think that you're just gonna walk around with a six pack and walk around like in shape. It takes effort, especially in today's day and age, man. Look how many fucking distractions we have. You drive down any street, within like a block or 2 blocks, there's fast food restaurants. There's all this shit. We got all these apps on our phones. Skip the dishes, DoorDash. We can get whatever food we want at the touch of a button, right? So the amount of convenience is it's like far outweighing people's willpower. You know, and it's like you succumb to that, those apps and all that shit, because I did that. I did that when I was addicted to video games. I fucking didn't cook a meal for like fucking 6 months. Maybe not that long. Maybe like 4 months, 5 months. I don't even know. It was so long ago. I don't want to remember that time in my life. But anyways, I just kind of wanted to come on here and share that. I thought that was an interesting perspective of really understanding that if you don't know something, you know, I talked on my stories about this yesterday on Instagram, actually. I think people's ego really gets in the way of them feeling some sort of humility and asking a question. And again, like ideally when you do ask someone for help, you should sit there, be invested, and retain some of this information. So maybe you see that person again. Do you really want to ask them the exact same question? It's like, okay, well, what did you do last time I gave you this exact advice? Oh, nothing. It's like, well, okay, then I'm not going to waste my time again, right? But yeah, man, like people's ego is just too fucking big. Like it's okay to not know something. It's okay to ask for advice or ask for help. You know, like you didn't even ask me anything, which is fine. Like you don't want to ask, cool, but it's just like, and I'm willing to help if you have a question, like ask a question, right? But I think people's ego gets in the way of that. But anyway, just some random Wednesday thoughts here. Have a good day.